first, terrible news yesterday. 6 children and a pregnant woman among 12 who died after a boat carrying dozens of migrants sank off the French coast in the English Channel. We're asking if we should have safe routes for asylum seekers. 020 7862 2222 is the number to give us a call. More than 50 people were rescued and 2 are said to be in a critical condition. The disaster is the deadliest loss of life in the Channel this year. Charities, including the Refugee Council, have demanded safe routes for asylum seekers. This means a journey that's formally approved by the UK government and would mean the Home Office immigration rules permit the journey without a visa. And that's the idea, that you have some sort of checkpoint in France and then you get taken over safely.
No. If you actually look at the definition of asylum, you've got to be in danger of persecution. Now, just take Afghanistan. I mean, this is a very good example. We got lots of vulnerable people, interpreters, people out at the very last minute, I may say. No great credit to us. At the very last minute, out. Those that were left behind are still in danger from the Taliban, if they haven't already fallen victim. They cannot go through some sort of an official procedure because the Taliban would just block it. Now, that is when you've got real cases for asylum. You've got genuine persecution.
But what if they get to France?
The safe routes are almost impossible. Whereas, of course, it works where there isn't really any true persecution. So I don't think that. The second thing is this. You know, these people are already in a safe country. They're in France. If they require asylum, why haven't they asked France for asylum?
That is always the question, Marvyn, isn't it? Is you are safe in France. Why do you want to take a risk of crossing the Channel?
Well, define safe in France, but I think...
Well, yeah, you are safe in France.
Well, I said define it because I think for everybody, not every European country is equal. That's the first thing.
But France is a safe country.
As I said, when you are a person of colour and you go to a place like France, it's not as safe as you think it is. And I think we have this idea of Europe being this haven, but not all of Europe is equal in terms of how it treats its people socially. So if there was a preference, and also people are going to meet family members, extended family members, places where you know people are going to be, where you have community, because safety is more than just physical safety. And I think the other thing is that we're now getting to a place where the attitudes towards this sort of boat crossing problem that we seem to be having is becoming more and more aggressive, where people are now just shouting, shoot them down in the Channel Sea, in the English Channel, sorry. And it's now getting to a point where we need a better answer, a more consistent answer that's clearer. It's not just about safe asylum. It's actually about our attitudes towards people coming into the country and the methods in which they're doing it.
Yeah, but that's what we're saying. Should you have a situation where in France you can triage people and you can have 100 people, you say, right, 50 of you are coming to England and we've got a ferry ready?
Well, first and foremost, and what I wanted to say in the beginning was, these are mostly women and children who have died in this particular instance, which makes it even much sadder than this idea of these sort of healthy, well-grown men coming into the country to leech off the country. I think the second thing is that our relationship with France has been deeply challenged. Obviously, it's been reduced by us removing ourselves from the European Union, and these things have impact. So going back to France now and saying, yes, regardless of our relationship now, we would love you to do more administration on your side and you should work with us, seems a little bit rich at this particular point.
And doesn't
we've already paid France, and you will know this. We've paid them millions to cooperate, to do just that, to try and stop the boats before they leave and enter the hazardous waters. We've paid millions. We haven't had the cooperation that we've paid for. And that was the last government that did that. This government doesn't appear to have any plan at all. And my belief is that the only way you are ever going to prevent these tragedies is by having a deterrent, so that if people think they can cross the Channel and then be settled here, they won't be able to.
Well, they tried to say, and I thought this was policy, actually, if anyone comes across in a disorderly way on a small boat, they will never be allowed to stay.
Well, the word you're looking for is illegal, and I agree with that.
OK.
I agree with that policy.
Say you can't stay.
You can't stay if you come here illegally.
OK, Terry in Kent on the phone. What do you think? Should we set up a safe route here?
No, we can't. If you say you set up a safe route in France, right, and get 100 people say, right, you can come to the UK, but when you get here, we're going to give you a sleeping bag and send you to solve your plans, because we ain't going to have this for them. If they're going to have a safe route, you've got to be able to supply the housing for them.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Marvyn, that people say we are full. Because we don't have the houses for our young people or for old people.
I think we always look at it in terms of migrations that we're immediately taking away one place for another, as if, like, I can't get a house now because migrants have them all. And I think that's a part of the dismissive rhetoric which has confused people into believing that they're losing something by allowing space for others.
Terry, what about that?
No, the thing is, at the moment, the government's already kicked a load of people out of the hotels and slung them on the streets. So where we got all these houses coming from? Are you going to just click your fingers and they're all there?
It's a perfectly reasonable point. I mean, we've got people in hotels at the cost of millions and no means of housing them. It's a perfectly reasonable point.
It is almost the most basic point. We have a housing crisis in this country. We don't have enough houses.
But there isn't a question then about the process that we allow people to come in here, which is non-existent, and if it is in any way, shape or form, is not fit for purpose for the amount of people that are trying to come in here. And then the second question then is about housing stock. It's not whether or not we should let them in because of the housing stock. The question is, why is there not enough housing stock? And what is the process to let people into the country legally?
Anne is in Hertfordshire. Hi, Anne. Another Anne.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Morning.
I've got no qualms with people coming in the legal route properly. We don't know who they are. They could be rapists, mass murderers. And I feel the French government are not doing their quota of sorting this out. And the French president and everybody over there should be prosecuted for allowing this to happen.
I don't know that that's going to happen, but if it was the other way round, if they were coming through the UK and they were all wanting to get out of Dover and across the Channel to go to France, the British authorities would wave them on, wouldn't they? Because it'd be less trouble for them.
The French wouldn't stand.
Then it should be the same here. The British authorities should be prosecuted. We have to do something. This cannot be allowed to go on.
And you're chuntering, Anne. It's not the House of Commons. What are you saying? I can't. I'm going to see mumbling.
My chunter was just one word: deterrent.
Deterrent. OK. Anne, go on. Yeah, sorry.
No, I just find it bizarre that I think, we're all sitting there talking about what France should be doing, but it's like going into a divorce and saying to your ex, you must uphold a certain behaviour now because I'm paying you maintenance. It's like absurd. They don't owe you any duty of anything. Once you leave the union and the relationship, you believe that they must. And anyone else that's dealt with Britain over historically, any other countries will know that sometimes you get a bad deal when...
OK, we would love to know, is it the answer to this, to stop these horrible deaths in the Channel, is to have a proper thing where you have a sort of triage system in France and we say, OK, the 100 on this side, get on the ferry and we'll get you over to the UK safely. You think deterrence is the way? I mean, deterrence involves bad things happening. That's the trouble. 0207 862 2222. See you shortly. Let's take some more calls on this idea. We just don't want to see people drowning in the Channel. Nobody does. Is the answer to put on some ferries? Basically, that's it. Edna in West Sussex, what about that? You have a ferry once a week and you take a certain number and they come over safely.
No, Jeremy, my feelings are that a safe passage will increase numbers. Our country is so much smaller than others in Europe. If obsolete cruise ships were anchored in the Channel, people could be processed before entering this country. Ships can house thousands. This would be a deterrent. Furthermore, no ID, no entry.
So you float these cruise ships in the Channel, which is, by the way, as you know, a busy shipping lane. So you've got to be careful. You've got to have them well lit at night, and you have people on them. And what do you do when you get the first outbreak of, I don't know, something contagious or whatever? Do you have to take them all off, or you leave them on, or what?
You leave them there, because if they're contagious, you don't want them in this country.
I don't know, because do you remember we had COVID on that barge, the Bibby Stockholm, and
cruise ship going around the world every day.
Yeah. OK, what about that, Marvyn? Edna's idea. You put them all on ships and you just pause them.
Well, I think one of the great things about this country is that we operate as a humane society and we want the best for people, even if they're doing things illegal. Going around and leaving people to die from COVID or other diseases is going around is slightly problematic. But look, I can sense your desperation for some sort of solution. And so having a safe refuge where people are able to be processed. But the question is that we don't have the relationship to send people back to anywhere with any true effect. So we end up having to deal with them and process them here regardless.
And
one of our biggest problems about sending people back is that countries will only accept their own nationals. And people arrive here, that lady picked up on it, without ID. So actually establishing national origin can be more difficult than you think.
Yeah, Edna, thank you very much indeed. Rita in Surrey, hi.
Good morning.
What do you think, Rita?
I think it was a good idea what you mentioned before the break about triage, because it really needs our authorities to, as you say, triage that end. And I did work in immigration, and I saw firsthand of injuries that the French, where they assaulted people coming across.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't want them in their country. But then they also don't help themselves because they throw all of their documentation away. They throw their passports in the channel. They think they're doing themselves a favour, but they're actually holding the process up.
I'm just going to, Rita,
And obviously,
I don't know if you could see your TV screen, but we're just showing a live shot of the channel which shows migrants coming over right now.
Yeah.
I can see, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, what would you do with that?
Well, as they're already in the channel, they've really got to reach over, haven't they?
Well, I think it was Priti Patel who had the idea of pushing them back, although that would probably end in tragedy at some point if you did that. Kids on there, it's very difficult, very difficult. Once they're there, once they're in our waters, they've essentially arrived, I guess.
It is difficult, and they are actually classed as clandestines.
Clandestines.
And as I say, it doesn't help because they throw all their documentation away.
Have you got experience working for Border Force yourself?
I was working in immigration, yes. Not Border Force, but immigration.
Yeah. Do you think Labour's policy that they kind of won the election with is to basically soup up the gangbusters and take out all the gangs? Is that viable?
Well, it could be.
Anne says
it
no.
could
You say,
be.
Anne says no.
No.
Shaking your head.
You might as well say, let's, eliminate the entire mafia. They operate from a number of different places. They operate abroad. It isn't a question of, oh, look, there's Mr. Gang Leader. It's massively difficult, and it's not going to get us anywhere. I'm all for it if it can be done, but it cannot be done on a sufficient scale.
Barbara's in Belfast. Hi, Barbara.
Hello, good morning, everybody. And hello, Anne. I love you to bits.
Well, we had some weird shenanigans on the Irish border, didn't we? Where the Irish were furious because we had migrants crossing the border into the Republic, apparently because they were worried about being sent to Rwanda.
No, I didn't. I wasn't wanting to speak about that.
Sure.
What I was wanting to speak about was, could they compare our benefit system to that in Europe? When, I don't know if it's Mrs. Rudd mentioned it in the Houses of Parliament, that somebody came into the country, they earn 23,000 a year, they had 10 children, and their benefits were 60,000 a year. Now, would you get the same type of benefits in Europe? The root of all evil is money, and this is why everybody's congregating to get over here.
Well, it's also, I mean, we do, for all that the NHS is on its knees, on paper, if you are offered free healthcare for any condition for the rest of your life, that's got to be worth about £2 million, I would have thought. And so it may be that, I mean, I don't know what we do about that, Marvyn. It's an offer that's too good.
Well, I think that particular part of the process and it makes it really, really attractive if all of those things are available and accessible. And I think reducing that is a part of the strategy. But just going back to the idea of sort of breaking down from the criminal point of view, from the breaking down the gangs, if we didn't include that form of strategy, people would complain, it's like, what are you doing about the source? So that being a part of the and of a suite of things that are currently being done is an important part.
Okay, but it was already being done. Look, I'm just looking at these pictures. I can't work out what piece of land that is. Have we got a pier there? We've got something on the right-hand side.
Here they come, and you've got to accommodate them. You've got
it's a live picture. Yeah, this is
when you say deterrent
in real time.
No, but Anne, when you say deterrent, what does that actually look like? Because I think we always get into the idea of sort of blowing up boats in the sea. But what is actually realistically?
Nobody wants to blow up boats in the sea.
That's what's been said on the show before.
I advocated in 1998 and have been advocating it ever since as a result of having been immigration minister, that what you need is, instead of putting people into hotels from which they can come and go and all the rest of it, you house all new asylum seekers. If they get through, you can actually turn the boats. But if they get through, you house them all in secure reception centres. And there you process their claims there. It can be done much quicker.
I'm assuming
and
that
then you
when
return
this
them.
boat we can see here, it's sort of havering by the coast. When it moves to land, it's possible that the people who get off may just filter into the crowds. So
Yes, of course it
you may
is.
never see
Of
them.
course it
They
is.
may have no contact with any official.
I mean, we have no national identity cards in this country.
Yeah,
We don't
well,
practice detention. You know, I
that's
mean,
good, isn't it?
that is one of the biggest magnets. People don't
I see.
realise
Would
that.
would you want us to have national identity cards?
I think, and this is not reform policy, this is Widdecombe talking, but I feel very strongly that certainly as a temporary measure for 5 years, it could be an enormous tool. But it's no good unless you can send them back.
Yeah. Barbara in London, hi.
Hi.
It was a bad day yesterday, that's for sure, wasn't it?
It was, but I don't think more safe routes will help because it'll just be too many people, you know, for our infrastructure, schools, NHS, etc. And the other thing is, I think the bar is too low in this country of who we accept. We accept 75% of claimants, whereas the rest of Europe is about 30 to 35%. Which I think they know all the loopholes, and I think even refugee agencies like Care for Calais are telling them these loopholes. You know, for instance, they can say, for instance, that they're gay. We're not allowed to ask, you know, for any sort of evidence. That's not allowed. So it's very, very easy, especially with the lefty lawyers as well.
Lawyers.
Well, okay, but I suppose if you have a system, people will play it. You know?
Having been a Kent MP,
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that at Dover, people were presenting and claiming to be unaccompanied children that were visibly middle-aged.
Yeah, well, I've seen
And they were
pictures of
taken. And they were taken.
Graham in Norfolk, hi.
Hello, Jeremy.
What do you think? So, safe route. So basically, have a ferry. 200 people queuing in France. You take 100, and they don't drown. That's the point of it.
Well, it wouldn't work, would it? Because you still got 50 odd who still want to come here and will still go on the boats.
Right.
My view is that talking of deterrence is rubbish. What bigger deterrent is death? You know,
There is the deterrent. Yeah, that's true, Anne. Yeah, there is a deterrent already, which is what happened yesterday.
Getting in a boat, I mean, I've been in boats in the sea, and taking your children in a boat is a massive deterrent. So what we really need is alternatives, routes where people can actually look at getting into the country. If they come illegally, then put them somewhere where we can process them. There's some lovely islands off the north of this country where young men wouldn't probably like being, but we could quickly process people.
Okay, so
We're
you're
not
going quite...
processing anyone at all.
No, I understand. But the problem with all this... Graham, the safe route argument, the problem with it is this. The person who's turned down for the safe route will come by boat
Still
anyway.
come in the boats, yeah.
Right? So what do you do about that?
Come in the boats.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if you've got the opportunity of seeing if you get asylum, and then you're turned down for a given reason, a logical, legal reason. I mean, we have entered into these laws internationally, and now we're deciding, well, we don't want to stick to them. Well, I don't agree with that.
Thank you very much.
We are party to these laws, and we're just agreeing with the fact that we've
Exactly the
started
opposite.
these laws.
Exactly the opposite is true. Britain has stuck rigidly by its treaty obligations, and the fact is you have to prove that you are an asylum seeker, and that is what is going wrong.
Thank you very much, Graham, and thanks for all your calls. Later we'll be asking...